We count down all the way. Number 26 now. There's the interlocking AU. The Auburn Tigers in at number 26, just ahead of Louisville, Iowa, SMU, and Kentucky. Auburn just outside of the top 25. When you start with Auburn, you start with Hugh Freeze and what he has done in his short time at Auburn to try to rework that roster.
Yeah, look, year 2, Hugh Freeze, and let's just go through some of the other stops. Lambeth, 8-4 year 1, 12-1 year 2. Ole Miss, 7-6 to 8-5, and Liberty 8-5 to 10-1. I think there's going to be a 2 or 3 game jump here. 6-7 last year. I think 8 or 9 is the win total. I had them number 20 in my top 25. I think they're going to be better than advertised.
Yeah, and I think it was Andy Staples who was on our show last week. He said it's just a weird thing, like at Auburn. They hire these guys as play callers, and then they hand off the play calling. Gus did that a little bit further down the road. Hugh did it right out of the chute, and Hugh realized it was a mistake year 1, and it's going to take back over play calling. And I think that is the biggest storyline of this Auburn team is you've got basically somewhat of a revamped offensive coaching staff and Hugh Freeze calling plays. How does that impact this offense? Because, you could focus whatever you want on the New Mexico State loss. It was a bad loss. Your offense was awful. The Iron Bowl, if your offense had been any better, you probably aren't in the situation that you were in. I mean, there were so many games. The Georgia game, you had every chance to win that game, and your offense just couldn't keep Georgia on their heels enough. I mean, just game after game, loss after loss after loss. You could look at it and say, if your offense was just marginally better, you probably win that game.
Well, I think the offense is going to be better.
I do too, starting with the fact that you've got playmakers at wide receiver. You've got the running back room is back better. The offensive line has improved over the last couple of years. My biggest questions for this team, can the defense be as good as it was for 3 quarters against Georgia and as good as it was for everything except the last play against Alabama? If that defense comes back, I think the offense is going to be light years better.
Eugene Asante really didn't know who this guy was in that California game early in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, he made his presence felt with the 12 tackles. They get Callaghan early. You start to look at the schedule, you open with 5 straight home games, which is so strange. But I think they've got a shot at being 5-0 after this.
I do too. I think they could You think 5-0 after the first 5? Before I agreed with you, but I wanted to make sure I heard you right.
I mean, if you want a special season, you got to be 4-0.
Well, 4-0 is a must. Yep. I mean, you are so much better than California. New Mexico is not New Mexico State, and that's an unfair shot there. But Alabama A&M you're so much better than all 3 of those teams. And here comes Arkansas. You're better than Arkansas.
Oh yeah.
Even your roster, and this is not a typical Auburn roster. But Arkansas is a less roster than what you have. You're a better roster than Arkansas.
You should be better than Arkansas, especially in Jordan Hare.
Yeah, I think based on the brand of Oklahoma, who will be around 15 probably coming into that game. If they were to win that game, I don't think Auburn fans, they're going to be upset, but it's not going to be disastrous. I think more disastrous, you lose the week before to Arkansas.
Yeah, you want to you lose to Arkansas, and then you stare at the next 2, Oklahoma at home and Georgia, and then Missouri. Kentucky, who you're barely ranked ahead of in our things, and that next stretch of 4 games looks very different if you lose to Arkansas.
The history of college football goes back to leather helmets, so a lot of things have happened. I feel really confident in saying if Auburn was to lose to New Mexico, they would be the first Power 5 team to lose in back-to-back seasons to New Mexico State and New Mexico at home.
I would agree with you on that, yes. Yeah. I would agree that it's got to be the first since leather helmets. The weirdest thing about that schedule, though, and we've talked about it before, but you just don't often see it, Auburn gets 0 October home games. And it's not because of some weird neutral site game. It's just because they got 3 road games and a bye. But they do not play at Jordan Hare for an entire month of football, and that is pretty strange for a Power 5 team that's not just playing a bunch of bye games they got to play on the road to miss an entire month at home.
Can you help me out, Forrester? Help me in my memory. Didn't they have something like this last year, or was it year before last where they had a big gap of the season where they weren't at Jordan Hare either? It was all hot games, and then
I think it was 2 years ago.
The end of the season. It may be every other year when the Georgia Alabama games are on the road that they end up with this chunk of a schedule where the best weather for football, October, it seems like they're on the road.
They got 1 October home game in 2022. No, actually, because they played October 1st against LSU, so they got 2. This is just a strange, when you've added all these teams and you got to adjust the schedule, it's just a strange way the schedule gets adjusted.
If Auburn's going to play Georgia and Alabama every year, and I guess there's no promise in the future that's going to happen.
But I'm going to guess they will.
But if they're going to do that, they got to get it back to where both of them are not home games, road games every other year. They need to split those two up.
Speaking of the schedule, two things. No LSU, Mississippi State, or Ole Miss, which seems so strange that we're sitting here and how long have those three been on the schedule consistently?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say, this is unique, but right now on paper, I think Auburn is favored in all 8 home games. Oklahoma will be right around the pick.
Wow.
But I think they're going to be dogs in all 4 road games.
Okay, let's see this again. That's a good number, though. 8-4, you're favored in those and dogs in the 4. So favored, obviously, against A&M when that bootleg line comes out. California, New Mexico, Arkansas. You say Oklahoma a slight favorite.
It depends on how both are playing through the month, but I would say right now it is right around the pick. I'll say Auburn 1 just to make it fun.
So Vandy, La Monroe, and then Texas A&M.
Yep.
Not the greatest home schedule in Jordan Hare history, right?
Season ticket sales, that doesn't help it much.
Yeah, my buddies who have, our supper club group, I think we have 11 kids in school at Auburn right now in our supper club. Mm-hmm. Our little church Sunday school group that we are lifelong friends. It seems like every one of their kids are in school at Auburn right now. They're all Auburn couples. They spend a boatload of money on their tailgate setup because they all tailgate together right there outside of the non-press box side of the stadium. And they love going down there. There's oftentimes they decide to stay at the tailgate and not go inside for their season tickets. They stay at the tailgate.
I've done that.
Either sell the tickets, give it to their kids' friends, and let them go in and sit in their season ticket seats and not in the student section sometimes. With that kind of schedule, I could see them hanging out at the tailgate, if it's good weather, a little bit longer and not making their way inside to watch the game.
So let me ask you guys this, though. When you look at this schedule, there looks like only 2 games at least that seem really, really difficult for them to win. At Georgia, at Alabama. Now, they're rivalry games, so anything can happen. But if Auburn was to win all the other games but lose Georgia, Alabama 10-2, don't play in the SEC championship, can they still get in?
Oh, they can. Now you start you would need Oklahoma probably to have a pretty good year. You'd need Missouri to have the year some people think they are going to have. Wouldn't hurt you for Texas A&M to be okay because if your losses are Georgia and Alabama, Oklahoma's only okay, Missouri's only okay, and A&M's only okay. You don't have a ton to hang your hat on because your out-of-conference is Cal, and that's just not going to help you much there. So, you got to tell me the rest of that. You got to tell me how good Oklahoma, Missouri, and A&M or Kentucky are, or maybe all 4 of those, and then I could answer that question for you. I'd like their odds at 10-2.
Yeah.
But, if Ole Miss is also 10-2 and they've got a better set of wins, they might be, right there in front of Auburn. Or if A&M's 10-2, then that helps Auburn.
What do you guys expect right now if you had a hard number for the Auburn Tigers?
If I had to bet my life on it, I'd say 8-4.
Yeah, I think I probably would too. 8-4 could see 7-5. 8-4 could see 9-3, could see 7-5.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the way I would put it. Probably.
But if you said I had to put my chip for all my money in the world on the actual win total in the regular season, I would put it on 8-4.
I think I would go 8-4.
Does 8-4 make the fan base optimistic?
Who are the 4?
Well, I think it's
your 4 are going to be, let's just say, your road games.
Okay, so you lose in Tuscaloosa, in Athens, at Kentucky, and at Missouri.
I guess the positive was you beat Oklahoma and A&M at home.
Yeah, those would be good wins. As an Auburn fan, I don't think you ever think Missouri and Kentucky losses are good. No matter where we are in history, Missouri and Kentucky losses, Auburn's a better brand than
it's going to be one of the better Missouri teams they've had in quite a while. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I roll out as Auburn, I think I'm better than Missouri.
You're right,
disagree.
But, realistically, who's had more wins over the last decade, Kentucky or Auburn? I bet it's Kentucky.
A decade's a long time now. That's going to be close.